I spent most of my adult life following a script I never actually chose. Go to school, get the degree, find the job, buy the house, invest in the 401k, retire at 65, and die somewhere around 78. And for a long time, I didn't question it. Not because I was stupid, not because I wasn't paying attention, but because everyone around me was following the exact same script. When every single person in your life, your parents, your coworkers, your friends, is moving in the same direction, your brain just stops asking whether the direction makes sense. And here's what nobody tells you. The script isn't broken by accident. It's working exactly the way it was designed to work. This video is about something I've been thinking about for years and only recently started to put into words. It's about why the system we're all living in, the economic structures, the psychological conditioning, the social dynamics, seems almost perfectly engineered to keep you broke, divided, and unhappy. Not because there's a secret cabal, not because someone's evil, but because a system that produces independent, clear-thinking, financially free individuals is a system that can't sustain itself. Let me be clear about what I'm not saying. This isn't a conspiracy video. I'm not going to tell you about lizard people or secret societies or any of that. I'm talking about something much more boring and honestly much more dangerous. Incentive structures, feedback loops, the invisible architecture that shapes what we believe is normal. Think about it like this. If you have a system, any system, that depends on people being in debt to function, that system will naturally evolve features that encourage debt. If you have a media ecosystem that depends on attention to survive, it will naturally evolve features that maximize outrage and division. If you have an economy that depends on consumption, it will naturally evolve features that make you feel perpetually unsatisfied. None of this requires a villain. It just requires incentives that point in a particular direction. And I want to walk through 4 layers of this: finance, psychology, theology, and society. And by the end, I want to make the case that opting out, not in some dramatic off-the-grid sense, but in a very practical, incremental way, might be the most rational thing you can do. I'm not coming at this from some enlightened guru perspective. For most of my life, I was deep in it. I had the consumer debt, I had the career path that looked good on paper but felt hollow in practice, I had the scrolling habit, hours every day just feeding the algorithm. And I remember the specific moment where I looked at my life and thought, whose goals am I actually chasing here? Because when I really sat with that question, the answer was uncomfortable. Most of what I thought I wanted because I was told to want it. And I started noticing patterns. The way financial products are marketed to keep you in monthly payments forever. The way the news cycle never lets a story breathe. It has to keep you in a state of low-grade panic. The way social media algorithms optimize for the content that makes you angriest, not the content that makes you most informed. I'm not special for noticing this. Plenty of people have. But I think most people stop at the noticing phase because the next step is genuinely uncomfortable. If the system is designed to keep you here, then staying here isn't neutral. It's participating, and extracting yourself, even partially, is going to feel wrong. It's going to feel like swimming against a current that everyone else seems fine floating in. Let me start with money because it's the most tangible layer. The average American carries about $6,000 in credit card debt. That number doesn't sound catastrophic on its own, but here's what matters. It's not the balance, it's the payment. Once you have a monthly obligation, a car payment, a credit card minimum, a mortgage, you lose something that's hard to quantify until it's gone. Optionality. The ability to walk away from a bad job. The ability to take a risk on something that might not pay off for 2 years. The ability to say no. And the system is optimized around creating those monthly obligations. Car leases designed to roll you into the next one before the last one is even finished. Student loans structured so the payments feel manageable while the balance rarely moves. Subscription models for everything. You don't even own your music anymore. You rent access to it. The financial industry doesn't want you broke in the sense of having nothing. That's not useful to them. It wants you solvent enough to keep making payments, but not solvent enough to have real options. That's the sweet spot. That's where most people live. And here's the part that took me way too long to understand. Being financially independent doesn't mean being rich. It means your monthly obligations are low enough that your freedom isn't contingent on a specific employer, a specific client, a specific set of circumstances continuing to hold. That's a much lower bar than most people think. But it's a bar that almost nobody clears because almost nobody is taught to think about money in terms of freedom. We're taught to think about it in terms of stuff. The bigger house, the nicer car, the thing that impresses people whose options you wouldn't even care about if you stopped and thought about it for 5 seconds. The second layer is psychology, and this one is harder to see because it's happening inside your own head. There's this quote I think about a lot. If you're not paying for the product, you are the product. And yeah, it's been said so many times it's almost lost meaning. But I think most people still don't internalize what that means at the behavioral level. Every time you open an app that's designed to maximize time on platform, which is nearly all of them, you're feeding a machine that gets better at keeping you there. The algorithm isn't trying to make you informed, it's trying to keep you scrolling. And the most reliable way to keep a human scrolling is negative emotion. Anger, fear, outrage, comparison. These emotions produce engagement. Calm, satisfied, informed people don't click as much. So you have a system where the economic incentive is to make you feel worse. And it's working. Study after study shows rates of anxiety, depression, and loneliness going up, especially in younger people. At the same time, screen time is going up. Correlation isn't causation, but at some point the pattern gets hard to ignore. What bothers me about this isn't just the individual harm. It's that when you are in a state of constant low-grade activation, always a little anxious, always a little angry, always comparing yourself to someone else's highlight reel, you're not capable of the kind of deep critical thinking that leads to real change. You're in survival mode, you're reactive. And people in survival mode don't question the system. They're too busy trying to get through the day. That's not an accident. A population that's anxious, divided, and distracted is a population that never organizes. It never demands better. It never even has the bandwidth to imagine an alternative. The third layer is one I almost didn't include because people get weird about religion, but I think ignoring it is a mistake. Here's something strange. Almost every major religious tradition has a deep suspicion of wealth. Not poverty worship, not money is evil, but a recurring warning that wealth has a gravitational pull on the soul. That is very hard to have a lot and not be changed by it. Jesus talks about a camel passing through the eye of a needle more easily than a rich man entering the kingdom of God. The Buddha leaves behind a palace to find enlightenment. The Islamic concept of zakat requires giving away a portion of your wealth as a purification. The Hindu tradition has entire frameworks for stages of life where material concerns are deliberately left behind. And here's the thing that gets me. In the modern West, we've somehow constructed a version of Christianity, and really a version of spirituality in general, that completely inverted this. Prosperity gospel. The idea that wealth is a sign of divine favor. The idea that if you just have enough faith, you'll be rich. It's almost impressive how thoroughly the message got flipped. I'm not here to preach, I'm not qualified to, and honestly that's not the point. The point is that for thousands of years, across completely disconnected cultures and traditions, the people who thought most deeply about what it means to live a good life came to a remarkably consistent conclusion. Wealth is dangerous. Not because money is bad, but because attachment to it changes you, makes you protective, makes you fearful, makes you see other people as threats or tools rather than people. And yet we've built a society where your entire worth, your entire identity, is measured by your economic output. What you produce, what you consume, what you own. That's not just an economic system, that's a theology. A belief system with its own rituals, its own priesthood, its own promises about what will make you whole. And most of us are in it without ever having consciously chosen to join. The last layer is the one that's hardest to see because we're in it. Society, culture, the water we swim in. Here's a thought experiment. Take any issue people are fighting about online right now. Doesn't matter which one. Now ask yourself, who benefits from this fight continuing? Not who's right, not which side has the better argument. Who has a financial or political incentive for the conflict not to resolve? Almost every major division in modern society has an industry built around it. Cable news needs you angry enough to keep watching through the commercial breaks. Political parties need you scared enough of the other side to keep donating and voting. Social media needs you engaged enough to keep generating data they can sell. I'm not saying the divisions aren't real. Some of them are. Some of them are based on genuine differences in values, genuine disagreements about what a good society looks like. But the intensity, the visceral hatred, the way people can't even have a conversation with somebody who voted differently, that part is engineered. That part is profitable. And here's the real uncomfortable implication. If you are perpetually at war with half the population, you will never unite with them against the actual structures that are extracting from both of you. As long as we're fighting each other, we're not looking up. We're not asking who wrote the rules. We're not questioning whether the game itself is rigged. Divide and conquer isn't a new strategy. It's probably the oldest strategy there is. The only thing that's new is the precision. The algorithms can now divide us at the individual level, serving each person the exact content that will maximize their emotional activation. That's not an accident, that's a feature. Now, I want to be honest about what I'm doing here because I think it matters. I'm not saying I have this all figured out. I don't. I still have a phone, I still use apps that I know are extracting from me. I still participate in systems I critique. And that might sound hypocritical, but I actually think it's just honest. Complete withdrawal isn't realistic for most people, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. What I am saying is that awareness is the first step. Actually seeing the machinery not as some shadowy conspiracy, but as a set of incentives that predictably produce certain outcomes, is itself a form of freedom. Because once you see it, you can start making different choices. Small ones at first. Canceling a subscription, deleting an app, building a savings buffer so your employer has less leverage over you, having a hard conversation with someone you disagree with, instead of performing for an audience that wants you to fight. None of this is revolutionary on its own, but stacked together over time, it changes who you are. It changes what you're available for. It changes who has power over your life. I've been calling this opting out, but I want to be more precise about what I mean. I don't mean dropping out of society. I don't mean moving to a cabin in the woods. I mean opting out of the emotional and financial dependency the system requires to keep running. I mean building a life where your basic needs aren't contingent on participating in dynamics you know are harmful, where your self-worth isn't measured by someone else's metric, where you can think clearly because you're not constantly being activated by algorithms designed to keep you in a reactive state. The individual who's financially independent, psychologically grounded, spiritually centered, and socially intentional, that person is very hard to control. That person doesn't respond to fear-based marketing. They don't need to keep up with consumption cycles. They don't get pulled into outrage loops. That person is free in a way the system can't extract from. And I think that's why this stuff matters. Not because escaping the matrix is a cool metaphor, but because a life of quiet sovereignty, of actually owning your time, your attention, and your mind, might be the most radical thing you can build. If any of this resonated, stick around. This is the first video on a new channel called Opt-Out Theory, and I'm going deeper into each of these 4 pillars: finance, psychology, theology, and society in future videos, breaking down the specific mechanisms, the specific strategies, the specific questions most people never get around to asking. And here's my ask. If this made you think differently about something, even one thing, drop a comment. I genuinely want to know what part landed, what you disagree with, what you'd add. This isn't a monologue, I'm trying to build a conversation here. That's it for this one. I'll see you in the next video.